Hello and welcome to the June 12th edition of State of the Disunion. Today we will be covering the London Bridge attack, the CNN fake broadcast, the case of reality winner, the British election, and the congressional hearing for James Comey. Before we begin, I would like to say a few things in relation to my upload schedule. State of the Disunion will be on Monday. On the topic videos will be on Wednesday and Friday. And finally, the weekend will be reserved for whatever sort of shitposty content I feel like uploading. With that out of the way, let's begin. We'll start with the London Bridge attack. I covered this as it was happening in my previous State of the Disunion, but now that more information has come out, I will round off the story with what we now know happened. I am not going to show the names or faces of the attackers, as they have been caught and they do not need to be given any further airtime. At least 7 have been confirmed killed, with several dozen wounded. As far as we know, all of the attackers have been caught, although it is possible that there are still some accomplices that are as of now undiscovered. The attackers drove a truck through London Bridge, running people over in the process. They then proceeded to exit the truck and attempt to continue their attack with knives. They then proceeded to continue to Borough Market to continue their rampage, where they met even more resistance and were killed when police fired 50-odd rounds into them. Throughout the attack, many citizens stood up to fight off their attackers, and many were successful with delaying them while others escaped. The police response was good, and the attack was ended before it had the chance to escalate any further. Moving on, in the aftermath of said attack, CNN decided to show us all exactly why mainstream media shouldn't always be trusted. And they decided to fake a protest. I know it's stupid too, and I could barely believe it when I first saw it, and even when I covered it. They were caught staging an anti-terrorist demonstration. They had no plans to disclose the fact that it was staged, and that was proven by the fact that they aired the segment as if they had stumbled across this protest on the street. Not too long after it was aired, however, a video was uploaded to YouTube showing them setting up the demonstration, as well as giving the demonstrators signs and posters that they themselves made. I go further in depth on this topic in one of my on the topic videos. Needless to say, this proves that we are right in our opinion from the mainstream media, and every day that passes, they seem to reinforce our convictions. I'm sorry that I'm stuttering over my words so much. A, I can't believe some of the shit that's happened this week that I have to read off. And B, it's 3 in the morning and I'm tired. Now, I don't mean to make Britain seem like a shit place right now, even though by all accounts some parts of it are. And we will soon be heading over to America to discuss what kind of crazy bullshit has occurred in the US. But for now, we will discuss the British election. The British Conservative Party held a healthy lead over Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party until a few months ago, when they decided to publish the Conservative Manifesto. Their lead was so strong because of their stance on Brexit and what they were hoping to gain from the negotiations. Not even Brexit could defend against the bullet they so willingly shot into their own head, however. This manifesto was one of the worst political mistakes made in recent memory. They proposed to reinstate fox hunting, as well as the ivory trade. Hell, they even proposed a so-called dementia tax. To make it worse, they wanted to limit and cripple and most heavily regulate the internet, a move that was incredibly dystopian in its description, as well as impossible due to the nature of the internet, networking, and those who rely and, to an extent, reside on it. If they had stuck to their hardline Brexit stance, they would have come out far, far in the lead. However, due to the classist, arrogant tone of their manifesto, in addition to the policies it contained, they almost suffered a crushing defeat to Labour. It bewilders me how they could have thought this was a good idea. I mean, they're obviously out of touch, but holy shit, they had such a massive lead in the polls. Not because people loved them, although some did, but because people hated them so much less than they did the Labour Party. A popular hashtag that took hold during the election, which I might add was started by Sargon of Akkad, I believe it was anyway, was hashtag less shit than Labour, perfectly describing the opinions of the majority of the electorate. It takes true talent to run a lead based on the fact that people hate your opposition with a passion. It takes even more talent, though, to make them hate you more than the opposition. Britain is now in a state of hung parliament, forcing the Conservative Party, under Theresa May, to form a coalition government to edge out a slight majority. All in all, this was about as much of a shit show as the American election was. Only they managed to do it in 2 months, and it took us about 2 years. Moving on from that, we are going to be reaching towards the end of the episode. With that in mind, let's head over to the U.S. We will be covering the case of Reality Winner and the congressional hearing of James Comey. I was going to cover the recent shooting, but most of the information has already come out, and I don't want to give any more attention to mass shootings. If you want more information, you can find it on Sargon of Akkad or V. They both have amazing channels, and they have both covered the story. And I will not cover this unless something major happens, like something changes. First, let's look at the James Comey story. I will link a video of the full hearing in the description for those who wish to fact check me. Now, the gist of this, however, is that Trump was not under investigation at the time, and that no votes were won via Russia. This should hopefully put to bed the Russian hacking conspiracy. While I do still find it odd how Trump fired Comey, it's not illegal. Many other points have been contested by Trump, and so I will not report on them until a decision has fallen in one way or the other. Honestly, I don't like Trump. Then again, I don't know much about him as a person other than what I've seen in the public eye, which, to be fair, might not be accurate. In a sane world, I would never have imagined Trump as the President of the United States. But with SJWs, feminism, Antifa, the alt-right, and 100 other factions all vying for political power and some fighting in the streets, I can officially say that this is no longer a sane world. Just as the conservatives are less shit than Labor, so too is Trump less shit than Hillary. Although Hillary isn't really a high bar to sit, and neither is Labor. Moral of the story: Western politics are in turmoil at the moment. Those in power cannot be trusted to fix every problem we have. And that's not entirely their fault, because they listen to the populace. Some of them do. And the vocal minority is what they hear. It's in the name, vocal. So the people need to solve these problems, not through political violence or anarchist revolution, as certain factions seem to want, but by making your voices heard, pushing for change in a sensible direction, and being responsible for the country you live in. I will never understand why people want their own country to fail just because somebody disagrees with their politics. So any of you watching, I implore you not to do that. And now, we come to the curious case of Reality Winner. Let's begin with a quote. Source linked in the description. The 25-year-old federal contractor now stands charged with leaking information regarding a 2016 Russian military intelligence cyber attack to The Intercept, an online news outlet. The Justice Department announced charges Monday against Reality Winner, a contractor with Pluribus International Corporation in Augusta, Georgia. She is accused of removing classified material from a government facility and mailing it to a news outlet, according to a federal complaint. This quote was from CNN.com, link in the description. The story goes that she printed out the classified documents on a printer at her workplace, and she used her computer at said workplace to print it out, which, I remind you, is at a government contractor where she works, and all of her information is freely available. She took no security precautions whatsoever. She then proceeded to mail it to a news outlet. Now, when this leak was discovered, it didn't take them very long to trace it back to her. You'd think that somebody who wanted a leak would also be smart enough to save, but evidently not. She's being held as we speak. Now, I am in complete favor of whistleblowers, actually. When the government gets as large and as secretive as the US government, or the British, or many other governments, it's almost impossible for the citizenry to keep tabs on what goes on. The government is beholden to the people. It's the people that give the government their power. So it's important that we have information about what's going on inside. The more secretive it gets, the more out of the loop we are, and that scares me. At the same time, however, knowledge comes at a price. It's not worth, a document isn't worth somebody's life. There's a reason why news outlets are able to work with the government and keep their sources anonymous to, well, to redact certain parts of it that might put people in danger. And yes, that has consequences for both sides, but I think those consequences are worth it to protect people. Now, in this case, I don't believe that the leak actually caused anybody bodily harm, but it's just something to keep in mind. This has been State of the Disunion for the week leading up to June 12th, 2017, and thank you for watching. My next topical video will be analysis of the so-called culture war. Have a good day and or a good night.